So in this video, I'm going to talk about annotations. And our annotations are any of the kind of usually text-based or graphics-based symbols and information that's kind of overlaid on top of some of the architectural elements in a plan or in a section or elevation drawing. So I'll zoom in here a little bit so you can get a closer look. So what kind of annotations do we have in this file? We have some dimension strings, we have some wall tags, we have room names and room numbers, we have something referred to as a section tag, and these all form objects referred to as annotations. Okay. This drawing is much denser than the drawings that we've been working on, but the concept is the same. We have a title block. This title block has information about the project and what the drawing name is, issue dates, and things like that. And you may have the opportunity of working on drawings like this. And it also has a set of viewport windows. This one has 2 viewports, and it has content drawn in model space. So I'll go to model space now. Right, so as you can see, here is the drawing. Okay, now I'm in the model space for the floor plan. And as you can see, we have all of these annotations. So if I click on them, they'll maybe tell us some information about the particular annotation. So the layer name, some information about, this is a dimension. So it says here, rotated dimension, and some of the settings that are associated with that dimension. We're going to be defining a dimension style in this project as well. Other things that you'll find in here, just some text strings. We'll be making a block that has the text in it that you can edit. And we also have these blocks here. This is a block, you can see. That's a wall number block. Okay, so sometimes you can click on these like this one you can, and you can change the value of that number. So the block that we'll make is similar in structure to what you see here. Okay, and as I mentioned, these are section tags. So these also have attributes in them that you can edit. So I can change the sheet number, for example, in this one. Now I'm back in a drawing for the small house project. And here's where I'm going to show you specifically how to create some of these annotations. The first group of annotations will be the dimension strings. So if I were to create a dimension string using whatever is the current one, so I'm going to go up here to where it says linear. Okay, you may see a window that comes up that asks you about the scale of the drawing. Okay, so right now it says down here annotation scale 1:1. So if I just leave it as 1:1 and I go ahead and make a dimension, oops, click on linear here, and it's going to ask me to pick an end point and then pick another end point. That's what my dimension string looks like. Okay. Now you may be able to see a little dot there. That's the text. Right? When I zoom in really close, now I see what the number is. This is way too small. And so we'll be altering the annotation scale here so that it's the right size for the drawing that we're printing. Now in the assignment sheet, there are a few layers that you're going to need to create: GDim color 6 and GANO color 7. These colors will both print in black when we take these to PDFs. So you can go ahead and create these layers. So here I've created those 2 layers. You can see them at the top of the list here. And I'm going to go ahead and make GDim my current layer. And this layer or this dimension that I created just a second ago, I'm going to put that also on the GDim layer. So your dimensions will be this magenta color. Now, we're going to change a whole bunch of settings. Things like that these are arrowheads. We're going to make them architectural ticks. We are going to control the font, the size of the text, the placement of the text relative to the line. We're going to look at the spacing that there is between something that you're dimensioning and the beginning of the line itself. Typically, there's a little space there. And you want that space there because you don't want the line work of your dimension to be confused with the lines of the architecture. So the best way, I think, to go about doing this is to read through the tutorial and change the settings. Step by step, each page has information about those setting changes. So beginning here, it's going to talk about going to the Annotate tab and clicking on this teeny arrow in the dimension panel. And from there, you will start to create a new dimension style. Now, a couple of things to consider. By default, there are two dimension styles that are already in the AutoCAD template file. One is called annotative and one is called standard. Generally speaking, you want to use the annotative one. And the reason for that is that when you have it set to annotative, the size of the text will respond to the annotative scale. So by annotative scale, again, I'm referring to the scale that's listed at the bottom here. So if I made the dimension style as annotative, it will adjust to these scales. If I made it as standard, it would not. So here I am on the Annotate tab, and I'm going to click on that little arrow. And as you can see, there are actually in this file, there are three. Now, one of them may have been brought in from a block or something. In your file, you may only see two. Okay, I'm going to click on the one that says annotative, and I'm going to create a new dimension style. And what you want to do is name it with your initials. So I'll name mine CM, and dim style. It doesn't matter if it's capitals or lowercase, and continue. Okay, from here, you're going to see a whole series of these different windows, and there are settings that you'll adjust based on the various settings that we want to establish for these dimensions. Best way to do this would be to go through the tutorial tab by tab and make those setting changes. So I won't do that in this video. I'll just suggest that you pause the video, go back to the tutorial, make the revisions, and then I'll pick up from there. So I've gone through and I have made some adjustments here. On lines, I changed, or actually, let me double check that. I'm going to go back to the tutorial and look at the lines setting. .06. Okay, so one thing you'll notice, even if you put in those decimals that are in the tutorial sheet, it may have converted them back into fractions, but 0.0625 is in fact 1/16, right? So don't worry about that. And I believe that the center marks, I had input a decimal of 0.09375, same thing as 3/32. So one thing you'll notice as you make these changes, so if I go back or I can change it to a different one, I'll change it to dot. You'll see the preview will show you what these are, what change is being made as you alter these settings. Okay, text, this is the style that I had made originally for my title block. And again, you're going to see things have been converted to fractions. Okay, so One thing you'll notice is that the text is sitting above the line here, and that had to do with changing this. If I center it, it's going to be in the middle of the line. Some of these things are personal preference. Some of them, an office may have certain dimension styles that are just what all the drawings are using, and it kind of gives some consistency to the work that's produced in that particular office. Okay. The fits, don't think we changed anything there. Primary units, this is of course architectural. One key thing to think about is this zero suppression. Basically, if I had a dimension of 7 feet 0 inches, I want to make sure that it would say that in the dimension string. I don't want it to just say 7 feet. I want it to say 7 feet - 0 inches. And the reason is that it could be confused with inches. So if I have 7 feet 0 inches, I want that 0 inches to read in the dimension string. Okay, so that's it. And then once you've made your style, you want to set that to be the current one. Set it current, and then you can close. Now I'm going to get rid of this dimension, and I'm going to make the adjustment for the scale. The scale I'll be using for these drawings will remain at 1/8 of an inch. So if I go to my floor plan here and I double click in my viewport, that should say 1/8 of an inch. Okay. Going back to the model, I need to change it in the model as well. 1/8 of an inch. Okay. Now when I make a new dimension, so I'll go back to my home tab and click on linear, and I'll draw a new dimension. Pick one point, pick another point, bring it up. That's my new dimension style. So one thing that I noticed is that my ticks are too big. So if you discover that it doesn't look as it does in the tutorial, and you need to go back and change a setting, you can go to annotate again, go to the arrow, and this time, instead of creating a new one, modify, make sure you've selected the one that you've been working on, modify. And then in this case, I'm going to change my arrow size to modify. Using arrows. And I will change this to 0.09375, enter, and say okay. And then you'll see that the change is updated in the dimension style. I'm going to get rid of this one for now. And the next step will be to prepare to add those dimensions on the plan.